since your birthday and New Year's Eve are the same day, like I feel like there's like a special misery that you have in that way. God. And I'm just wondering, like, a lot of people have like a worst New Year's Eve story, but do you have like a worst birthday / New Year's Eve that's memorably bad?
My worst was when I got food poisoning from a bag of carrots that I ate trying to not eat cake.
Oh, that's so sad.
No, I ate a whole bag of baby carrots. And I remember it very clearly. I was playing Trivial Pursuit and eating carrots, trying to avoid all the sweets because I was with my family.
You know what? There's somehow an oblique lesson in this.
Yeah, and not to be
just
too graphic or profane, but let me tell you that, like...
Oh, no, God. Oh, my God.
When the only thing you eat is an orange vegetable...
True. That's so gross. Hey, this is Amrita and Andrew. We're on a podcast journey to find our way through freelance life.
If you're thinking about taking the leap off the beaten path in any part of your life, our advice is don't think twice. Cheers.
Cheers.
Happy New Year. 2018 was a little bit of a dark thud.
It was.
And so I'm happy to be here with you again.
Me too.
There were some highlights. We did some good things. We were busy, but I'm happy to get back on a podcasting routine.
Yeah, me too. It's very, very welcome.
It's a new day.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi's Speaker of the House.
Again.
Mm-hmm. Our government's still broken. but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
A lot of shit is still broken, but life goes on. And here we are.
But I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah. Good. Well, I guess maybe we can talk a little bit about what we've been up to. Even though I said we should
talk about it a little later? No, let's just lightning
knock it out.
Update on where we've been.
Because we have to assess where we've been to move forward. Yeah, well, anyway, it's been super busy. 2018 was especially the second half.
Yeah.
I remember sitting down with you at a certain point, and we just looked at each other and we're like, this fall is going to be crazy. And this fall was really crazy. Yeah. It was like really crazy.
I mean, I probably saw you a handful of times between...
Oh my gosh, it was like
September
the least
and December
that we've seen each other since we've met each other, probably.
Yeah.
And most of that was due to, dumb things like work.
Yeah, a lot of work.
But a lot of work, a lot of new work. We worked7 on some projects for work for kind of the first time with our company.
Well, I mean, we've worked together a lot before, but it was just in a different way.
Oh, in a different way. Absolutely in a different way. And it was really great.
Because I guess you never know if you work with your friend like with a client and like a professional project that's not you're not driving
right. Like
it.
We've done tons of creative projects between us. And this was some of our first work where it was like there was a third party client involved or project involved. And I mean, I had no doubts. Like I knew we were going to work great together, but it was like really awesome. It was such a like seamless, like left hand, right hand. Never had to have a check-in meeting.
It's so nice to be like, oh shit, I have to do that thing today, and then like going to do it and it's already been done.
Yeah, I had that countless times happen. It was awesome. So we traveled for work, which was really awesome, like all over. You were in California, I was in Vancouver.
You were in Canada a couple times, California.
Times. Yeah. Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver. So we were kind of all over the place, and some more of that coming up, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
I started a part-time job managing an opera company.
Managing director. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm in charge.
Yep.
And it's interesting to be in a tiny company. Usually it's like like to do anything. Like if I want to buy a pencil, I have to like sign a requisition form and get it stamped by like 6 people. But now it's like I want to make big changes, like something really big scale, and I'm like, who needs to sign off on this? And they're like,
I guess you're that person.
So I have to make a decision, and then I have to just do it, and then I have to also, deal with whatever the fallout is.
Yeah,
of
I mean,
those
you have to be
decisions.
accountable for it.
Yeah, which is like interesting because it's like I've never been in a company of that scale. So, so that's been interesting, and also I think really useful hopefully useful for other ventures.
Right.
And it's weird being back in like the theater world and stuff, especially because it's like opera. Like I'm not really a theater person. Like we're music people.
Right.
Although I have been like not uncomfortably, but like interestingly rubbing up against some of our colleagues from our past lives.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm also working part-time a little bit, not in a leadership capacity for another opera company based out of Boston. And, every now and again, it's like someone they mention, it's like, oh yeah,
I know that person.
I worked with that person.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a small world.
It's a very small world.
Yeah.
So that's been like crazy actually, because coming into a big role like that, especially if it's it's kind of it is my day job. It's sort of a part of sort of secondary part, honestly, to my like our professional life and our creative life. So so that's been a lot to take on, and I feel like I'm like all fall both of us were like we were both managing 5 email accounts apiece.
It was
5
wrong.
inboxes. That was insane. And always feeling like trying to like catch up and never being ahead of the ball is like I think crazy making for
it's the
both
first
of us.
time I can say truly that I felt like there weren't enough hours in the day, and I knew that I was not going to finish everything that I needed to finish in the day. And it's like the first time I've just been like, well, someone's going to be mad at me today.
Yes. Yes. And it's just like you have to choose who that's going to be from day to day.
Yeah.
Like literally.
It's a tough place to be, and I don't want to be back there, frankly, ever again. And multitasking really took a toll on my life. Not just while I was at work, but it's only now, after been like a month of kind of not having to do that I'm starting to feel like I'm getting back to myself.
Oh my God, completely.
I mean, it got to the point where I couldn't find words. I would just be talking to people and I didn't have words, and I would just blankly look at them like, you know what I mean? And they're like,
I think
no, I don't.
Something about like being in deep focus on one thing and then having to change, like, screech to a halt and like be in deep focus on another thing. It's like that changing gears takes so much more energy than actually doing any of the things that you're doing. And that sounds very like melodramatic, but it was really, that was the hardest part, was like in switching between the inboxes is just like when you have to go from deep focus on one thing to deep focus on a completely different thing. It's just like your brain can't really handle that much turning on a dime.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. But you were working on some big fashion contracts.
Yeah. So for the first time ever, I did a couple of fashion shows. I did one, Ralph Lauren's 50th anniversary fashion show and dinner, which took place in Central Park back in September for Fashion Week.
That was like the event of Fashion Week too. It was like a big deal.
Yeah. So I worked with a creative agency. There was a team of us production managers who put it together. It was my first time working with them. They were great people. It was a big production. I mean, a fashion show runs for like 20 minutes. I mean, they could run for 15, they could run for 30, but even still, and then there was a dinner that followed afterwards at Bethesda Fountain, which is a famous fountain
just like a
Central
moment in time.
Park. Right.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, 3 to 4 hours for an incredible amount of money and work. But I met a lot of really great people, and it was I had never worked in fashion, so it was like a learning experience. From industry to industry, people work differently, and so it was interesting to see how fashion people pull it all together.
You literally saw every celebrity. It was
they were everywhere.
Everyone.
They were like,
I mean, it's no secret because all these people were like had it on their Instagrams or whatever, but it's like from Oprah to like all the supermodels, anybody who's
Hillary
ever
Clinton to Kanye.
Yeah, like every actor, actress on the planet.
Right.
So anyway, so that was like interesting, and you were like so nonplussed by the whole thing.
it was
like unimpressed.
No, I wasn't unimpressed. It was interesting, and it was a beautiful dinner. And but at some point, you kind of go face blind to celebrities because there are just so many, and they're all in one spot. And okay, there are some people you can pick out easily, but there are a lot of actors and actresses that like are handsome and beautiful, and you're like, oh, I know, I think are you an actress? But I will say, of all the people that I saw, notably the woman who stood out, and maybe she stood out because for a second I thought the man who was standing next to her, invading her personal space, was a cater waiter, but it turned out to be Nick Jonas, which made sense because that is now her husband. But Priyanka Chopra was notably beautiful that night. They're a very cute couple, and they have very good chemistry.
Well, that's hot news from like the front lines, because I think it's unclear. People are unclear, including me.
As a person who had no interaction with them, but was within 15 feet, 10 feet of them.
Palpable sexual chemistry.
Yes.
Okay. They
look very happy together.
I'll buy it.
And they look very cute together.
Yeah, so you stayed on after Ralph Lauren, and you worked another big show.
Stayed on, worked through the fall, and then in December, Chanel had a show, which is sort of an interesting show because it's outside of fashion season. It's outside of their couture line, I learned. It's called Métier d'Art, which is basically a celebration of all the fine craftsmanship that happens in the house, all like the
hand
beading and feathering and whatever. And that happened at the Metropolitan Museum, which was also a really interesting place to work for the very first time because the labyrinth below the gallery
amazing.
spaces.
I can't believe you got to see all that.
I mean,
so cool.
The security that's involved. There's just a security guard stationed at like every corner down every hallway. I mean, just hundreds of security guards.
I can't imagine like the value of all the art that's in
there.
In the vault, like not even the stuff that's out on display, but like all the stuff that's stored away that they can't.
And I never thought about, I mean, obviously art needs to be moved, and it needs to be moved in and out of a building. I don't know what I imagined, but when we were loading in the Chanel show, because we took over the Temple of Dendra, which is a pretty notable part of the museum, so we had to bring in a lot of materials through the loading dock. And then one day, the museum emailed us and said, oh, by the way, we're moving art tomorrow and the next day, 3 pieces of art at this time, 2 pieces of art at this time. So we need the loading dock. And I don't know why that like shocked me that they would use a loading dock to move art. I mean, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
I guess the Mona Lisa had to get to the Louvre somehow, probably through the loading dock.
Right.
Anyway.
It seems so pedestrian.
Yeah, that's right.
You think that like a chorus of angels should like carry it down.
In my mind, there's some like airtight vault that you have to like go through with lasers, like the first Mission Impossible sort of thing. But there's not. It's just a guy who checks your name off a clipboard.
Yeah, it's just Steve down at the loading dock.
But if you have any ideas about stealing anything from the Met, first of all, you shouldn't do that because it's art that we enjoy. But second of all, it's very fucking confusing when you go downstairs. Like, I don't know if
maybe
it's designed that way.
Maybe that's by design. Yeah, it's like a labyrinth, and then people get lost in there and then just like starve to death.
They just run but the show went off really well, I guess. And then there was an after party in Central Park that I was sort of involved in for a little bit. And apparently that went all right too. And that concludes my fall fashion.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, but here we are. But both of us, notably, things have calmed down.
Yes. And
it's like feels like a kind of a hard reset for 2019.
I'm really excited
about
it. Yeah. Really excited about it.
Yeah.
But speaking of 2019, I don't know if you saw some of the new legislation that has taken effect this year. I'm sure some of you have. But new laws across the country that have taken effect. I mean, a lot of them have to do with like minimum wage hikes and whatever, which is great. But there are a few that are...
I have no idea where this is going.
Okay, so you haven't read any of these. Well, okay, so there are a couple... There's one in California that I really like, which is about the minimum number of women who need to be on your board of a publicly traded company. Nice. This year, it's like 1, and then in 2021, it goes up to like 2 or 3, or it's like a ratio or something. So...
Love that.
That's a great law. Another California law that I just can't... It's just too much. Sometimes sometimes good people just do bad things. And it's a law that now makes pets not property, such that in a divorce dispute, a judge can grant custody of pets, including partial custody. And look, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, it does not make sense. It does not make sense.
I wasn't sure. I was like, maybe
stupid.
Andrew's gonna make a left turn and think this is like a good idea.
No.
Okay, because like I was rolling my eyes.
People are gonna spend taxpayer money standing in court arguing over a chihuahua.
Yeah. I know people put people consider. I was gonna say white people, but current company excluded. Like really put like pets like inside their family. Like it's like it's like their kid. I mean, I just can't. I can't even deal. Like we have lots of people that we like, who refer to themselves as like
mommy
dog
and
moms
daddy
and dog dads and stuff like that. And I just really can't deal with that.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Is what it is. If you're that person, you need to stop.
Not to put too fine a point.
It's 2019. I'm not going to hide my opinion. It's gross.
And don't let your dog lick inside your mouth either.
Hey, now that. No, just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. But a couple. Also, Hawaii now legalizes assisted suicide. Oh. That sounds depressing, but I think it's actually a beautiful thing.
And New York City now allows you to put gender X.
Yes, New York City, you can do that on your birth certificate.
On your birth certificate.
So it's like real. And then in Illinois, you can now wear pink when you hunt, whereas you used to only be able to wear the orange, the bright orange, when you're
seriously?
hunting.
By law?
By law.
That's insane.
So now pink is another option.
Great.
So these are the things that legislators have spent the year working on.
This is the time of year, obviously, for like resolutions and stuff. We don't really do resolutions. We do goal setting as of the last couple years, which has been super effective and awesome. And I won't get too much into that. Like we did a little like session where we reviewed all the awesome things that happened. Well, all the things that happened, positive and negative in 2018, and the list of like cool things that interesting things that happened was much longer than I anticipated when I actually sat down to try to catalog them. And then just, framing our next year's or this year's kind of goals as like, manageable. Like breaking them down into manageable chunks.
Here's our goals. Here's our steps. Here's our deadline.
And deadlines and deliverables and like concrete things. So that's all well and good. We both have been sort of struggling with a very common thing around this time of year, which is like returning to fitness. Returning to fitness, period. Really just like kind of leapt back into it in earnest this week. And
how's that going?
Oh my God, it's like so hard and so miserable. And a couple things, like we were talking about this last week when we saw each other, that like it's gonna be horrible. Yeah. You just have to go in knowing this is gonna suck a lot. Yeah. And then it's gonna suck a little less. And I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at trusting that it's gonna suck less, and I just have to chip away at this until it becomes
because I think
better.
Way too highly of myself. So then if like something sucks, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean something sucks. Like I don't know. It's like I don't have faith in myself.
Well, I just don't have patience in long-term change. Like, glad we just talked about it because it sucked so much going back. It sucked so much. It hurts. I'm like by far so remedial that I like. It's sad because it's like I just can't do any of the things that I used to be able to do. All these things, but we also talked about a strategy for dealing with embarrassment. And I just want to return to that because I think it's very...
I want to talk about this for a bit too.
Yeah, because I think it's really funny. So I have a friend who suggested to me that when I'm navigating free weights at the gym and I'm feeling uncomfortable about it, especially because I'm like, oh, I don't want like them to think like I'm a dumb girl that doesn't know how... because I feel like there's a lot of like these burly dudes in the free weight section. And I don't want them to help me either. I just want to
be left alone.
Be left alone to figure out where stuff is and how to use it. And like, I basically know how to do everything. I just need to like find my way. So, but when feeling awkward about it, she goes, okay, so just imagine that you're an Olympic weightlifter. You have been to the Olympics. Tragically, you suffered from a bout of amnesia, and now you're trying to find your way back to your sport, you know?
Yeah.
So amnesiac weightlifter in the free weight section, that visualization
does that help you?
A lot.
So I've been doing this kind of thing for a while now too, although it's not an amnesia thing.
Well, I mean, that doesn't have to be your particular fantasy. Like today I was in a bar class and, you know, and there's all these like, you know, 8 foot tall, like fitness glamazons in, I'm pretty sure my class was made up entirely of Instagram influencers today. Yeah. It was out of control. And I'm like, I can't like lift my leg off the ground. I'm like dying. And so, you know what? I was like, I headlined in the Ballet Russe. Yeah. Like these bitches don't even know. Unfortunately, I shouldn't have taken that, you know, rich, handsome lover from Hong Kong because we went down a dark path, got into drugs, I got obese. It's fine. Like lost my job. But, you know, I'm getting back on track. But like,
back on track.
But what these women don't know is that like I'm a ballet superstar.
So I use the same strategy, but I add on to it just a little bit.
Okay.
And this is, so if you go to the gym and you're feeling any kind of way about it, I would suggest this. You rotate what your story is depending on what equipment you're using, such that your strength is always the thing that you're not doing. So if you're on the treadmill, then you're like in championship, something that doesn't require any sort of cardio. So like, you know, like, what's that Canadian game they play with rocks on the ice?
Curling. So
you're a curling gold medalist when you're on the treadmill.
Right.
So you just rotate so that like they're just seeing like
you're seeing the weakest part of my game right now.
Like I'm actually like very coordinated.
I'm very good at this other thing.
And this is just like maintain. You know, this is just meant to like balance it all out. You know, just like the baseline. Well, I maintain the baseline. I
think like I kind of described it in a sort of hostile way, but it's really just more like who are they to judge? They don't know my story. And by somehow like elevating my story to something super dramatic, it helps me like justify that they can't judge me. But in reality, who are they to judge us, like, period?
Well, yeah, but it's also more fun.
But it's so fun. And the funny thing is, like, I'm not out here like judging anybody else in the class.
Well, I mean, that's the ultimate thing, right? Because no one actually fucking cares. And no one even noticed you were there ever. That's just a rule that we need to remember in life. Except
when I dropped a prop because I couldn't hold it like between my knee and my thigh, and it like rolled away into the
I almost took my eye out on a dangling piece of equipment. And then so that's it. But we're just starting on our journey again. I went to the gym day 2, felt terrible. Yeah. I promised myself I'd stay till 11 a.m. and at 11 a.m. it was in the locker room.
10:59 and 99.
So I did it. I stayed for 45 minutes, but
very good. Yeah. So it's going to be a struggle until it's not. So let's just keep on the slog and remember that, because
keep up making stories about ourselves to make ourselves
rich fantasy
feel better.
Lives.
Yeah. I was watching news or something, and they were talking about the new AI trends for the new year, and the artificial intelligence trend of 2019 is terrifying, as predicted by some woman.
Yeah, I got into a conversation with a lady who worked in AI at a Christmas party that I went to randomly, and I started getting like white all the way around my eyes and started ranting to her about like how the machines are taking over and shit, and she was like, okay. Like, I'm sure she runs into like crazy theorists.
Because they are.
Like, I suddenly turned into like a conspiracy theorist in that moment.
Well, this is the thing. They've now developed technology that is so good that there will soon be videos that have been completely not only manipulated, but just completely made up.
Oh, yeah. I read about
that are
this
so
in
clear
the context
that we will not even be able to have video footage that proves anything.
Right. So I actually
So when we have a video of Donald Trump peeing on a Russian prostitute, he'll say it's just artificial intelligence.
It's the bots. Yeah. I was actually thinking about this in the context of porn, because they had interviewed some celebrity about how the fact that like there are already videos out there that have like sort of generated like celebrities into porn, which is like yeah, it's eerie. It's kind of like
so we have to look forward to that. Or seeing all our favorite celebrities in porn, which I guess that's a good thing.
It could be.
But then, everyone being able to deny all the bad things they've ever done.
Well, so speaking of trends for 2019, really quickly, I worked I worked an event at the end of 2018 that was about launching the top 10 wellness trends for 2019. So yeah. You're like already exhausted.
Yeah.
So some of the trends were like, I have to say that there was one trend that is something that I have peripherally experienced, and I'm kind of like, I'm basically on board until I'm convinced otherwise, which is oat milk.
Okay.
Which actually it's like hyper trendy.
Yes.
I hadn't like heard of it until pretty recently.
This is so boring.
I'm sorry. Okay, what
No, I'm just kidding. Are you going to tell me about oat milk right now?
No, I'm just defending oat milk briefly, but the other trends were like, okay, thank you for that, by the way. Some of the other trends were having a full bush.
Okay. Like 70s era pubic hair.
Yes. Yes. And then what else? Oh, getting your vitamins via IV drip, which is apparently a thing that you can do. You can have someone come to your house and give you an IV drip in your home.
I shared with you my idea. Has it been shared on the podcast?
I don't
Should
know
I not
that it's
share
made
it so people don't steal it?
You know what? Let's just say we've slapped a copyright on this bitch.
Okay, yes, we've copyrighted it. But we are currently developing it's a loose term, the world's first ever vitamin cigarette.
A vape pen.
Yes.
For vitamins.
Yes. So you can take a smoke break with your vape buddies, and all you're smoking is some good old vitamin C.
I may have initially expressed some mild skepticism about this idea.
Mild? You rejected it.
I did
fresh
not.
Out the gate.
I did not. That is inaccurate.
Your words were basically, and I paraphrase, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
That is not what I
said. Go throw yourself off a bridge.
Yeah,
something like that.
Oh, sure. Sure. But I have to say that I really see the wisdom in it. It's a new day, and I think this is a brilliant idea. It's brilliant. And I would be a consumer. And also, okay, so I got a CBD vape pen.
How did that work for you?
Well, so I'm not really convinced that the effects are anything beyond psychosomatic, but I like it, and it's I have one that's flavored like grapefruit. It's so bougie now. Like we went into like my super expensive local Park Slope drugstore, and like Park Slope moms with their little kids on scooters are coming in and buying it. It's now that it's like the norm in New York. So but anyway, so we'll throw some CBD into that vitamin vape pen, and it's going to be a bestseller.
That'll be an option.
Yeah.
One just fact that I came across when I was talking to my niece who's in 7th grade in Georgia. I haven't lived in Georgia since I was 18 years old, so it's been a while, and it's easy to forget where I come from and the things that are happening there. Casually, she's a big reader. Casually, she just mentions the book that they are reading in their 7th grade English class.
Okay.
She just said it and moved on, and I had to stop her and be like, what? And she's like, the teacher's having us read Ben Carson's autobiography.
No fucking way. There's no way.
I said, what are you talking about? So this teacher has chosen the Ben Carson autobiography, which Josie tells me is very religious. No shocker.
This is horrifying.
And poorly written. And this is a 7th grader who's like, this is dumb. And I was like, I just can't believe that in 2018, 2019, like, this is what's happening.
Wow.
That my poor niece is reading about Ben Carson in 7th grade.
As assigned reading.
Yeah. Of all the autobiographies, biographies, memoirs that you could pick in history.
You sure as shit aren't going to find them reading Becoming by Michelle Obama.
So I thought that was sad.
That is really, really sad.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Wow.
But anyway, a few other things, if you'll indulge me.
Yes, please.
First of all, we're coming up. It's January that we're recording this, and we're coming up on MLK weekend in a couple of weeks, which means that you and I and our friend Ulysses have an important decision to make.
We do.
Because we need to travel somewhere, and I guess we need to decide what that is. I don't know the criteria needs to be.
So it's kind of hard to capture exactly. I mean, I think honestly, Ulysses has captured the essence of. I feel like he could summarize this better than we can. But we've somehow made ourselves a bit of a MLK weekend tradition around like a pilgrimage to a bedraggled location of some kind, or like something that it reveals its greatness in subtle ways. So it's
a nice way to put it.
Yeah. So for instance, we 2 years ago went to Buffalo, New York. Yeah. By train, which is really,
by like 12-hour train.
Really far. It was
8 hours.
8 hours on the train. Which honestly probably would have taken that long in a car in the snow. But we took a train trip to Buffalo, and I don't know how I got snookered into this, but you know.
Because of my will power.
Yes, true.
I was like, you're coming.
Yeah.
You're coming into the cold and the snow.
You know, which is like my...
Buffalo.
I usually am running full speed
me too.
away from that.
Me too.
And then it was like, spoiler alert, Buffalo is fucking awesome.
So I think my thinking first of all, Buffalo is a great city. Anyone who's listening from Buffalo, thank you for...
Shouts.
welcoming us. But... now that I think back, I think my reasoning is that January and February and March are like the worst parts of the year.
Yes.
In the Northern Hemisphere. And so I wanted to embrace that.
Yeah, it's like kind of like
spirit.
A weird way of like leaning into the misery and then somehow coming through on the other side to something else. So similarly last year we didn't travel too far. We traveled locally, I guess, last year. Yeah. To I don't even know what neighborhood, like no offense, Brooklyn, like I like don't even know. I honestly cannot even tell you where we were. We were like,
I've lived in Brooklyn for 10 years. I didn't know where we were.
We were in the hinterlands of Brooklyn, somewhere like deep interior. Yeah. And just wandering around, and we like came upon this amazing bar that was like horse jockey race themed, with like all these like neighborhood ass people who were like, who are you? Like like we couldn't have gotten weirder looks if we had walked into like the only bar in like you know, Laramie, Wyoming or something. It was like crazy, and had like the best time. It was the best. So now we need to find another bedraggled
one,
place.
maybe a bus ride away, a train ride away. I've been thinking, I mean, the Poconos to me is an option.
That has sort of a mid-century kitsch aspect that I appreciate. I actually have been to the Poconos one time. I took an inadvertently romantic trip with my high school best friend. I'm excited. I'm glad that this is like a tradition that we can perpetuate, because it's been actually really like great, and one of the few ways in which I can find some joy from winter.
And that time of the year is when you're farthest away from any holiday. The end of January.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Which notably, I've read this a couple times. Like January 23rd or 26th, something around there is like the most depressing day of the year. And reason being because it's farthest away from any
holidays, and you know, days haven't started to get quite long enough yet.
So I think we need to make MLK travel weekend a thing. Where you go to like a rough place.
Okay, great.
And you spend a few dollars, and you revive the economy, one MLK day at a time. I've now joined a wine subscription service.
Shut up.
Look, it's cheap.
That's awesome.
And I don't have a good wine store since I moved in June. There's one on Nostrand, but it's like I'm in a transitional neighborhood. So when like a lot of New York transitional neighborhoods, they'll only have like really cheap liquor stores and then just like very expensive sushi restaurants and like this wine shop.
That's what it was like when I like when I
you were in
initially lived
Harlem.
in Harlem. Yeah, there was like a sushi restaurant where like a salmon roll was like $8.
Right.
And then there was like and across the street from me was the liquor
Crispy
store that had
chicken.
Well, that was Obama Fried Chicken was in my ground floor, but across the street was that like bulletproof glass type of liquor store where
that's what we have.
Their best seller is like the airport sized.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, I was walking down the street the other day, and just up Nostrand, which is my block here, and I had my headphones on, my head down. I had some things I was going to mail, and someone brushed my shoulder, and then he turns and he points to this broken wine bottle that was in a black plastic bag on the sidewalk, and he was like, "Hey man, like you bumped me when I was coming out of the liquor store just now." And I was like, oh, and he didn't point that out yet when he said that. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. He was like, yeah, I was carrying that, and he pointed to it, and it was like broken on the ground. So I'm standing on the sidewalk. He's like, yeah, it's like, it was like, that was like $10. I need like $10. And then a car pulls up and honks the horn, and this guy looks over to this woman who's probably 40 years old, and then she looks at me and she's like, keep walking. And I'm like, what?
Oh my
she's
God.
Like, no, just keep walking, don't listen to this guy, keep walking. And I was like, oh, he was. And she's like, no honey, you just keep walking with me. So I started walking, she just like followed me because he was following me, and then people were like honking the horn because it's a busy avenue, and she just went the speed of my walk
to accompany you.
And she was harassing him the whole time, like, leave that boy alone. He was just, a junkie.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know why I was telling that story.
No.
Point being, I signed up for a wine subscription service because all these bitches out on the street trying to take my money. So I got my first delivery in December. And I'm going to give it a couple more months. It's like there's no commitment. And so they sent me 3 reds and 1 white, and the white was delicious. But then they sent me 3 bottles of red wine that all go with pizza, steak, and barbecue.
It's almost like they know you.
I know, right? So I'll keep you updated.
That sounds great. Let's get into one of those, actually.
Okay.
Extremely mediocre white guy who's like positioning himself as like the star of the group. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that this like white man is profiting off of the labor of all these like much more talented people of color. A real story for our times.
For our times.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was Pentatonics.